You are listening to the Intelligent Vocalist Podcast, episode 167.
Welcome to the Intelligent Vocalist with John Henny. This is the podcast dedicated to help you be a smarter, better, more informed singer. And now, your host for the Intelligent Vocalist, John Henny.
Hey there, this is John Henny. Welcome back to another episode of the Intelligent Vocalist. I do so appreciate you spending this precious listening time with me. Oh, I tell you, I just had to take a nap, and a pretty decent nap, because earlier today I went to the grocery store, which is now transformed from something that's slightly inconvenient to an exercise in terror. With social distancing now in place and the general fear of the virus everywhere, every time somebody starts pushing their cart down the aisle that I am in, I start hearing the shrieking violins from Psycho in my head. It's exhausting. I've said it before, but I have deepest sympathies for germaphobes now because their lives are absolute hell. This is it's not fun. And I should probably try the grocery delivery service, but I do like to go and get my own groceries and pick my own produce. It is somewhat frustrating that there are no dried black beans to be had. And I'm thinking a lot of these people who bought pounds upon pounds of black beans, they're not going to get eaten because McDonald's and Burger King are still open, and they're going to look at these black beans, which they never really ate before, and they're going to go, nah, I can order a pizza. So somebody has my share of black beans, darn it. I want my black beans. Anyway, I hope you're getting through this with your sanity relatively in check. Interesting times indeed. But I want to switch to something a little bit happier, which is singing. And I want to talk about phonation. The reason it's top of mind, I'm currently writing my newest book, and I'm pushing to have this ready by early summer, midsummer at the latest of 2020. And it is basically a beginner's book for singing. A book for beginners about singing. Yeah, neither one of those will be the title. I'm still coming up with the title. But I was working on a chapter today on phonation and just thought I would discuss this a bit on the podcast. Phonation is the act of making sound. We take breath and then we exhale this breath, but when we make sound, we close the vocal folds over the stream of breath, and they buzz like a trumpet player's lips. I often use the idea of when you were a kid and you blew up a balloon, and then you pinch the top as the air is leaving, you get that squeaky sound. If you pinch it a little too much, the sound cuts off. If you go a little too slack, you lose the sound as well. The air just rushes out. And so it is with phonation. We have three basic types of phonation. We have breathy phonation, pressed phonation, and flow phonation. The first, breathy, is you letting the balloon go a little too slack. The air is not being resisted enough by the vocal folds. The vocal folds, in order to create a sound wave, need to close over and hold the air back. And the length of time that the chords stay closed is called the closed quotient. If you are making a pitch, the A above middle C opens and closes 440 times a second. However, you can spend more of the time. The folds can be opened a greater percentage of the time, close quickly, and then open again. So the closed phase, the closed part of it is very brief, and that doesn't compress the air sufficiently. They need to close over, compress that air, the air molecules get pushed together. That builds energy because the air molecules don't like being so close to each other. And then when the folds open, they spring apart, and that starts the vibrating of air, which equals sound waves. Higher pitches, the air molecules are vibrating more quickly. Lower pitches, they are vibrating slower. And we will call this rate of vibration, it will be referred to as frequency. And if we have a low closed quotient, the air molecules don't get compressed sufficiently, the vibratory pattern is rather weak, and we get breathy phonation. Now, breathy phonation is used all the time. It is a very valid musical color. It is safe to do unless you're just shoving tons and tons of air and just drawing the chords out. But singing breathy in and of itself is fine. It is of a lower level of skill than singing louder. It's relatively easy to do. And the folds aren't really touching that much in higher pitches. You're just getting the edges of the vocal folds coming together. Again, they're not staying closed very long, so we get a breathy sound. The second one is pressed phonation, and this is the one that can cause trouble. In this type of phonation, the closed quotient is much longer. The chords are staying closed for a longer period of time, opening briefly and then closing again. And that's not the problem as much as how we make them close longer, which is primarily done through muscle. We begin to really compress or press the muscles together, and we get this really kind of squeezed, overloaded sound. And then when the chords open up, they're slamming back together. Now, since the folds are human tissue, this can cause problems. Imagine clapping your hands as hard as you can, bringing them far apart and just slamming them together 440 times. Well, on the A above middle C, your vocal folds are doing that every second. So you can very quickly start to fatigue and also cause swelling on the folds. You're irritating the tissues, and they're going to swell as a response in order to protect themselves as a buffer. And what's going to happen is now the vocal folds are thicker. Well, now it takes more tension to get them up to pitch. So you're going to start employing more muscle. Also, imagine playing the trumpet, trying to buzz your lips. If you've got swollen lips, you have to press them together harder. So you start this vicious cycle of overloading the muscle, slamming the folds together. They begin to swell. Now you need more effort to continue singing as you were, which is going to cause even more swelling. And the chronic issues that can occur are vocal nodules that are like calluses. You can even have sudden acute problems such as vocal hemorrhaging. We really want to be careful with pressed phonation. Now, can pressed phonation be a legitimate musical color? Yes, but you gotta be really careful with it, and you only want to use it. It's like a ghost chili in your cooking. You just want to use it here and there. And speaking of that, I've got really fantastic dried smoked ghost chilies that taste really good in what? Black beans. So if you're somebody hoarding black beans, I hope you're happy with yourself, because I've got this really nice ghost chili that I can't use. But if I was going to use it on my black beans, I'm very sparing with it because I can hurt myself if I use too much. Terrible story. My wife, when I first got these smoked chilies, they come in a grinder. And I had just put a tiny bit on my food, and I'm eating, and she must have thought, wow, that smells really good. And they do. They have this nice smoked smell. So I hear her in the kitchen, and I hear the grinder going, and I go, oh, she must be putting pepper on something. And then I just hear her coughing and standing over the sink with tears running down her eyes because she had put my ghost chilies all over her food. She basically became pressed phonation. She overdid it. So yes, she had a lot of coughing and crying and has not gone near it since. But you want to be very careful. And you especially want to be very careful on higher notes because the chords are vibrating more quickly, and you can just do more damage. Now, unfortunately, when we sing higher, when we go into that vocal transition, if we haven't mastered that break, that acoustic shift, and we're holding on to the shout condition, we're holding on to our lower register, and we're taking it too high, pressed phonation is one of the most common results. And people, you need to push more air to get the folds vibrating. So they start to shove more air, and then the chords are popping open and slamming together, and they're trying to get that high note so that it's happening at a high rate of speed, and you will fatigue very, very quickly. If this is something that's happening in your singing, when you go to sing higher and you feel this starting to kick in, this is something you want to work through. This is not a condition you want to allow. It's going to come back and bite you at some point. Now, some voices are more resilient than others. The folds won't swell to the same degree when they are stressed, but that doesn't mean it's healthy just because you don't feel yourself going hoarse. And unfortunately, when you are programming behaviors into the computer that is your brain doesn't know if this is a good behavior or a bad behavior. They just know it is a behavior that you are asking it to remember. And so when you do this repeatedly, you are now going to have to unlearn that behavior before you program in the new behavior. You're just giving yourself more work. So that's something that you really want to watch out for and you really want to get fixed. If you are really having issues with this, I recommend seeing a voice teacher. There are plenty of voice teachers doing online lessons now, and online lessons work very well. I've noticed even teachers that were resistant to the idea of teaching over Zoom or Skype are finding the lessons go really well, and they're new converts. It's just it's a sign of the times or the current times. So I would find a good teacher. Even a handful of lessons can really, really help. I want you to not do pressed phonation except in a ghost chili type of way. Now, the third type of phonation is much like Goldilocks. The porridge is too cold, too hot. Well, flow phonation is just right. And flow phonation is a balance of airflow to muscle at the vocal folds, or airflow to resistance. It's not too much air. It's not too much muscle. It's this right balance. And you will feel when you're in this balance, it will be a lack of effort, but you'll also have a full, rich tone. You're not going to go breathy. Now, having said that, it is usually best to work from the lighter side of phonations, the slightly breathier side, and build into flow phonation, rather than being in a pressed phonation and trying to let go of the muscle. Those muscles, especially the muscles within the vocal folds themselves, are just bullies, and they will just jam up. These muscles are very, very important. When you clamp down on something, when you are doing your morning ritual that requires, right now, non-existent toilet paper, you need to bear down. Childbirth, bear down. And so your vocal folds can really come together and resist a lot. And these muscles can really do a number on the delicate tissue. So it's very hard to come from a pressed phonation side. So slightly breathy, building into it. Now, having said that, flow phonation in and of itself is not going to solve all your singing woes, because you also need a well-tuned vocal tract. You need to form your vowels in such a way that you get optimal resonance, that the sound waves are vibrating within your throat and mouth in an optimal way so that they feed energy back to the vocal folds and help them resist the air. If you don't have that finely tuned vocal tract, it's very easy to go into pressed phonation. So it all kind of works together, but a really quick exercise to feel the 3 different types of phonation is go ahead and give me a sigh. There's breathy phonation. Now you're lifting something heavy. There is pressed phonation to the extreme. Now you're eating your favorite food. And there is flow phonation. And that hum can be really, really helpful to just do glides on that. And if you feel well, that's better than the pressed. But if you can just get that nice buzzy sensation, you're on your way to finding flow phonation. Hey, if you want to know more about me, please visit my website, johnhenny.com. I want to tell you, I have made my $197 piano course. It is now free. No catch, there's no upsell, no anything. Just go to my website, johnhenny.com. You'll see the link right there on the front page, right above the fold. You can't miss it. It's right under my free vocal warm-ups course. Just click on that and you can access the course. It is called Piano for Voice Teachers, and that's who it was designed for, but it works for singers as well. These are piano skills that I worked on and developed before I became a voice teacher, and I was really thankful that I had them, that I was able to play scales, to vocalize myself, to pinpoint on things, to accompany myself, to learn new songs, and it starts right from ground zero. It does not assume any experience with the piano, so feel free to check that out. Also, if you click on the podcasts up in the upper menu, I am getting, I've got people working on it, transcriptions of all the podcast episodes, as well as PDF downloads. So if you get an episode that you really like, if you want it for reference, you can just, if it's there, they don't all have them yet, but just click around and you can get the PDF downloads as well. So you will have these episodes as a reference. And until next time, to better singing. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.